Casual Birder podcast, a weekly podcast for people interested in the birds they find around them. I'm Susie Buttress. This week I asked listeners if they'd like to take part in a 10-minute birdwatch and let me know what they saw. So this afternoon I've been sitting in my parents' garden. I did a 10-minute birdwatch earlier. It was just at a time when all the birds were being quiet and there wasn't much around. So I'll share that part with you though. There were a few birds. And then after I finished, more birds started singing and calling. So we decided actually we'd go out for a walk. Just a short walk, just to see what other birds we could see. It's very warm, it's very dry, and it's the afternoon, and so again there wasn't much happening. But it's always worth going out for a walk. You never know what you're going to see, and it gets you out into the open and makes you do more steps, so that's always good. And we're just sitting now in the garden. Breeze has picked up, so that's really nice because it's been so hot. Just had a goldfinch sitting nearby singing away, and that was really lovely to hear. And we've got lots and lots of house sparrows around just chirping away, and just had the wood pigeons in the garden. So it's a lovely afternoon now. Okay, well I hope you enjoy this week's episode. I'm sitting in my parents' garden in East Essex and decided to do a 10-minute bird watch. So I've just set my counter going on my phone and just going to look around. So it's currently 12:30 and this is not traditionally a good time to be able to see birds. But what I can see already is a wood pigeon sitting up on a neighbour's roof preening, and I can hear some house sparrows chirping away in the background. There will be a lot of traffic noise as well, I guess, because it's right by a road. So I'm just going to take a short walk up the garden, see what else I can see. So I think a goldfinch has just turned up on the aerial on a neighbour's roof, and we'll know if it starts calling. I'm just going to go to one side because it may want to come down into the garden to get some water. Yeah, I've just heard a cheep. That was definitely a goldfinch that landed. It's still up on the aerial. Heard the wing flaps then as the wood pigeon took off and flew away. Generally, mid-afternoon is not the greatest time to bird watch. For some reason, around the lunchtime hours between say 11:30 and 3:30, birds seem to calm right down and disappear generally. First thing in the morning is the best time to do it. Birds are active after their night of roosting and are busy going about their start of day activities. So the wind's picking up. It's a very bright, warm day. We've had a run of very hot weather here in the UK, but it's very overcast today, so it looks like, I'm not sure it looks like it's going to rain, but it is a sort of humid, moist air. So another wood pigeon flying over just then. There were lots of house sparrows around earlier, and I left my recorder out recording their calls while I went back indoors, so that they wouldn't be disturbed but would still be tempted to act normally while I'm recording them. I can hear another goldfinch flying over, I think. And off in the distance is a wood pigeon calling now, but unfortunately it's going to be too far away for it to be picked up on the mic. I can see a little brown bird hopping on next door's roof. I think... No, it was a house sparrow. I wasn't sure actually. The way it was hopping, it looked like a juvenile robin. European robin. But just as it flew, I heard it chirrup, and it was definitely a sparrow. Yep, we don't even have any buzzards flying over. There's a plane flying over, so you'll hear that in a second. Sometimes you get black-headed gulls flying. There's a refuse collection point nearby, and they do congregate there. I think I did a bird walk earlier in the year from there, and we saw lots of black-headed gulls at that point. So birds that my parents regularly see in the garden that they've told me about are wood pigeons, house sparrows, blackbird, robin, goldfinches, and they're the ones that they see most frequently. In the past they've had missel thrushes, just in a winter period, wren, which they don't see very frequently but does come in the garden, starlings very occasionally, but they generally come in to use the bird bath. A wood pigeon just flew through the garden carrying a very long stick, so I guess they're back into nesting at the moment. And it's currently mid-July, so must be another brood coming along. Might just have heard the ruffle of wing feathers as the wood pigeon flew back then. Did its normal thing of landing and then having to lift its tail. There's just something about whenever they land, they seem to lift their tail, and I don't know if they have to do that for balance or whether it's just a feature of wood pigeons. So I think I've described wood pigeons before. They are a large dumpy bird, mostly grey with a flash of white on the sort of shoulder area, and they have a white, almost like a neck ruff around the back of the neck. They also show a sort of pinky grey top of the breast, and the head is a sort of bluer grey than the breast, which is more of a pinky grey. So the head and back is kind of like a blue grey. And they're larger than the feral pigeons. They also have some iridescent purplish feathers on their neck area as well, purplish and green, which you can see when they're close by and the sun's on them. And they have a white cere as well, and a orangey, palish beak and pinky coloured legs. This one's just deciding if he wants to fly into the garden. And in the background behind him I can actually see a buzzard circling very high up. And the pigeon's just come into the garden. So I think he's just come over to get some water. He's a little bit concerned because I'm sitting here. Yep, he's flown up to the bird bath. Pigeons and doves are able to drink by sucking the water up, I guess, whereas a lot of birds will dip their beak in and then tilt their head back to swallow the water. Pigeons and doves can actually swallow while their heads are in the water, so they reach down, put their beaks in and take the water in, and you can see their throats working as they suck up the water. So he's had enough now. He's just about to fly. And that was him just leaving the garden. They are big, and when they come and sit in the bird bath, they do seem to take over. Oh, sounds to me like my 10 minutes is up. Let me just go and turn off my timer. So I guess that's the end of my 10-minute bird watch. So in that time I heard sparrows and saw one sparrow, house sparrow, saw a goldfinch, a buzzard flying high up, and saw a couple of wood pigeons. Not bad for a lunchtime period when usually the birds all disappear. So having finished the birdwatch in my parents' garden, we've now come out to Wooden Fen, which is a wildlife trust reserve. And this was because after I finished my bird watch, I started seeing lots more birds around, and I can never stop at just a couple. As soon as there's birds around, I have to see them. So we've come out for a short walk just to see what we can see. Just noticed a blackbird flying along the hedge in front of us. Oh, what's this? It's a duck of some sort flying over. possibly just a mallard. Sorry, possibly a mallard, because there's no such thing as just a mallard. They all have value. This reserve is quite close to some busy roads, so you may well hear those in the background. We're just going to cross over the railway line. So I'm actually out for a walk with my dad and my husband on this Sunday afternoon. Wood pigeon flying over. It's a bit different to the last time we came for a walk along here, which was, I think, in November. It was a pretty cold day. Today there's a lovely breeze. Sorry for any wind noise. And it's nice and warm. The air is warm. So yeah, this is an area where my dad's seen kingfishers flying along this small creek bed before. So fingers crossed that there might be something like that visible. So the creek bed that we were walking alongside is actually dried up. We've had a long period of probably 2 months of very little rainfall. And so I don't expect to see a kingfisher today, with nothing there for it to fish. A couple of wood pigeons just flying over. And ahead of us is the water treatment facility. Just saw the gulls all rise up, so we'll go over and have a little look in there. Little flock of birds flying over here. Could be linnet. They're probably like 12 feet away from us, so really close, and gone straight into the grasses next to us, completely hidden. But there were about 8 or 10 birds. Oh, don't move. So I've just seen one fly away, and that was definitely a male house sparrow. So exciting to see a flock of brown birds. Hoped they were linnets. Very strongly suggests that they're house sparrows. Which is okay. It's good to see house sparrows. But they are very, very common here. Yep, I heard them chirp. Definitely house sparrows. But we're just approaching the treatment work, so there's likely to be sound of the engines or machinery. I suspect we'll see... Oh, there's a pied wagtail on the path just in front of us, walking ahead of us, walking a very clockwork way. They're fly-eating birds. It's landed on the railing ahead of us, and when it lands it wags its tail, hence the name, raises it up and down. When they walk in a very clockwork way. Very pretty birds. This one is a male, black and white, hence the name pied, black cap, white face mask, and black and white plumage and a long tail. Very floaty when they fly. Oh, magpie just took off in front of us, flying away from us. Obviously disturbed him from his perch. I enjoyed my walk out on the fen. Bird walks are always unpredictable and you never know what you're going to see. But it's good to get out and about, and even if you're seeing birds that you've seen before, it's an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their behaviour. This week, as I've mentioned, I asked listeners to carry out a 10-minute birdwatch and let me know what they'd seen. Margie is currently in Vermont, and she sent me the list of the birds she's seen. A flycatcher, a woodpecker, heard, North American robins, hummingbird, pileated woodpecker, red-winged blackbirds, crows, blue jay, a small hawk, a few birds we couldn't identify hopping around in the dry leaves, turkey, male and female, and chicks being taunted by deer, a bunch of geese and chicks, a bird that makes a call that sounds like cheese dip, white egrets, eastern bluebird, red-winged blackbird, sparrows and pigeons. Oh, and she also saw mourning doves and some plastic flamingos on someone's lawn. Not sure they count, Margie. The bird that says cheese dip, or sounds like it says cheese dip, if anyone knows what that bird is, please let us know. I also asked some fellow podcasters if they'd like to send in the lists that they'd seen on the Birdwatch. I've got quite a variety and I'll be posting them over the next few weeks. I'll put the links to their shows in our show notes, and do try and check out the shows. Here are the ones that I received this week.
Hi everyone, this is Kate from Pups and Popculture, the podcast about your favourite dogs in film, television and literature. I also feature stories from dog mums and dads about the love, laughs and losses of pet parentship. I live south of Sydney in Australia in a rather bushland area and have recently become fascinated with documenting the large amount of birds visiting my backyard. In the last couple of weeks, I have had a consistent stream of cockatoos destroying everything in their path and currawongs claiming the yard as their own. I've seen the more common birds such as magpies, crimson and eastern rosellas, Indian miners, little wattlebirds, blackbirds, peewees, pink and grey galahs, willy wagtails, fairy wrens and the occasional kookaburra. However, my most favourite visitor is a white-faced heron who visits in the morning and casually struts around unbothered by my presence. A few days last week he was joined by a white-necked heron, a much larger bird and more easily startled. While these birds fly in and out often, it was my first sighting of a group of satin bowerbirds that was the most exciting last week. Their blue eyes were absolutely amazing. The rarest sighting this week was a buffed rump thornbill, who landed on my fence only long enough for me to get a clear image in mind to do a search online later. It's always wonderful watching these creatures going about their business every day. Well, that is until my Labrador, a true bird dog, barks at them and everybody scatters.
Hi Susie, it's Steve here from Sharp the Podcast, and no, don't worry, it's not Steve in the field, but I guess it is Steve in the garden. So I'm on the south coast, somewhere near Portsmouth, and I've been watching for 10 minutes, and I can report that the birds that I've seen in and around my garden in that 10 minutes are 2 pigeons. I think they're different pigeons. They did land at different times. One dove-looking thing, sort of a beige colour with a black ring round its neck. You see, I clearly am not the expert. A crow, and flying overhead, a kite. And I know it's a kite because I know that they nest in some of the woods near where we are. So that's my report. I'm now going to go back in to get out of the sun, which is clearly an unusual problem for us here in the UK. And I'll just pause for a minute to see if you can hear any birdsong in the background. No, just traffic. Oh, something flew overhead, but I was looking down at my microphone instead of looking up. Thanks, Susie. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello, this is Stacey from the podcast Rough Giraffe.
And Owen from the show with Preshaah and Frosty.
And we are here in Reading, in the UK, standing next to the canal.
Yes, the Kennet Canal in Reading, and we're surrounded by lots of birds.
So we've seen loads of Canada geese. They were having a right old Barney a minute ago. What else is there?
Well, we saw the Canada geese. I thought maybe they were mating, perhaps, or doing a mating dance, or they were fighting. But we also saw and heard a moorhen, which was quite interesting. Yeah,
the moorhen was shouting. There's lots of female ducks.
They're fighting as well. It's quite an aggressive canal.
We've seen a massive dragonfly, which I think could probably pass as a bird.
You could call that a bird. It was as big as a sparrow, so yeah, I'd call that a bird.
And we've seen some little fly bird which grabbed an insect out of the air. That was really good. I couldn't quite tell if it was a wagtail or a finch or something, but he was small and very moved almost like a
hummingbird, perhaps.
But it's not a hummingbird.
It's not a hummingbird, but it looked a bit like one. And of course we've got the classics pigeon, and we've got lots of wood pigeons in the area also. I think we saw some seagulls. Ooh. Don't think you see many of them around here. And we can hear some other birds, but we're not quite sure what they are. I can hear a wood pigeon right now, but there were some other birds as well.
Yeah, so I think that's it for our 10 minutes.
Yeah, and it's been fun. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Susie. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to everyone who sent in the bird lists, and it was great to hear the recordings from the other podcasters. Steve, I think the beige bird that you were talking about with the ring round its neck is a collared dove. Have a look online and see if you can see some pictures of it, and let me know if I'm right. If you'd like to take part in the 10-minute Birdwatch, just watch your garden or other space for 10 minutes, note down the birds you've seen, and then send them to me and I'll read them out on the show. You can send them to me at casualbirderpod@gmail.com. Do join our Facebook group to discuss this week's episode or post your photos of the birds you've seen. I love hearing your tales, so do come and join the conversation. You can find us at facebook.com/groups/casualbirderpodcast. You can follow me on Twitter at casualbirderpod or on Instagram at casualbirderpodcast. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a review in Apple Podcasts. Alternatively, share the show with your friends and followers on Facebook or Twitter. And if you see that I've tweeted, why not retweet it for me? It'll help it gain a wider audience. Thank you to Randy Braun for designing the artwork for the show. The theme music is Short Sleeve Shirt by the Drones. Thanks to them for letting me use it. And check out their website at www.dronesmusic.net. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join me again for another episode of the Casual Birder podcast.